One thing I want to point out during this discussion is the TurboLogix product, which was the predecessor to the TurboLogix EV. We basically have a lot of common look and feel between those product lines. And matter of fact, some of the new features that we've got on the TurboLogix EV will be folded back into our primary TurboLogix product, which is used for, a lot of machines that are in the process industry and have got a lot more I/O than what we typically run into with the TurboLogix EV. And the TLX EV product line is really targeted more and more towards the retrofit market, and the TurboLogix itself is basically going to be more of a product line, or it is a product line that's complete panel replacements or systems upgrades. So that's kind of the direction that we're going with all of this. But anyway, we want to go back and reiterate what we're doing today and show you the common look and feel between the products. So let's continue on. With our water system, you can set up your water system so that you have control of a solenoid valve so that your package can have the water turned off after a certain number of minutes after you shut down. What it'll do there for you is prevent excessive water use or energy use in your plant on that machine. Some people use it, some people don't. But anyway, it is here and you have that capability of setting that up. So now we want to look at the different control setup that we have available for the machine. Number one, we have a new control mode called Power Guardian. And what that allows me to do is set up multiple set points. In other words, I can have a standard operating pressure set point, which my inlet guide vane operates at. And then I can put an allowable percentage offset. So I can actually set that up for my bypass valve so it runs at a higher pressure. So what that does, it creates a band that the machine operates in between, say, for example, 100 psi and maybe 5% above that, which would be 105 psi. So the nice thing about this will basically allow all machines on the air header that are running this control to turn down their inlet valves to their best operating point as far as energy consumption is concerned, and then operate in a band between that lower 100 psi level for the inlet valve and that 105 where the bypass valve will now be controlled. So the nice thing, like I said, it allows all your machines now to basically inherently, based on just the system air pressure, to turn themselves down to their best operating point. And then also we've got control mode auto dual, which is a pretty standard operating mode, not used by a lot of customers, but it does allow you to get some energy savings by pumping up a system, throttling back, and then unloading the machine and waiting for the decay in the system before you reload. And then of course, constant pressure or modulation mode. And that's kind of a standard that's been around for a long time, where your inlet and bypass valve are both modulated to maintain a system air pressure control. We've got two other selections now. You've got remote control, and what that allows you to do is use hardwired contacts to remotely start, stop, and reset the machine. Or you can go back to local HMI control, which will allow you to go back in and set up the control and use the HMI or the main display to do the control. Speaking of which, let's just cover one area real quick. Go back to our main. If you'll notice on this display, there are no push buttons on the side like in previous TurboLogix systems. So you ask yourself, well, how do I load, unload the machine? How do I reset the machine? And how do I acknowledge alarms? So very easy. We've added a new button down here called the function button. And by pressing the function button, it brings up a display or a pop-up on the side that allows you to do an alarm acknowledge. And once you press the button, it disappears. Okay, you can hit the reset button. Okay. You can unload a compressor, or you can load the compressor, all through this keypad right here. Okay, and you'll notice whenever I told it to load, I went to local modulate selected. So it was a local command, and I have selected modulate because that's the control mode that was there. Now also, instead of hitting the function button, I can just touch this side of the display. So if I touch the side of the display or hit the function button, then the keypad comes up. Well, what if I make a mistake and I really don't want this pop-up there any longer? I have an exit button down at the bottom, easy enough to press. Once you press that, then that goes away. So that's, as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of hidden keys, a lot of hidden capability that's based on different setup parameters. That's kind of a hidden function in a way, but by pressing the function button or pressing the side of the display over here where that resides, you can bring up this pop-up, which will give you an alarm acknowledge reset, a compressor unload, or a compressor load capability, all from one location. All right, let's go back to our setup, talk about a few other things. Okay, miscellaneous. We've covered this a lot of other times. If you want to set up your motor running hours from a previous control system, say you had an older control system, you had 4,160 hours on that old system on your motor, you can go in here and set that value in and update that so that that motor time or that running time can be transferred over into the new control. Also here you can do a running unloaded shutdown control, and you can also set up your PLC clock. Now let me mention one thing. The PLC clock and your HMI clock are all jointly coordinated. So by setting up the PLC clock, I read that information into the HMI so that they're all operating together. So anyway, they are linked. So as you set up your PLC clock, it will update the display on the HMI. So that's the first place that you want to go as far as setting up your time and calendar values will be here. Now, there's also a new little button down in the corner down here called Exit Application. Now, we'll talk about that in a few more minutes in a little more detail and show you that later on in a separate little video area. But this allows you to go from the main application into a submenu, which is basically an area where maintenance is done on the software or on the display itself. There's a variety of things can be checked out, and we'll go through that and show you a few of those here in a moment.